I'm with Dennis Avi Lipkin, chairman of the Bible Bloc. Now, Israel is at war at the moment. Do you think Israel can defeat Hamas in Gaza?
Israel has no choice but to defeat Hamas. I look at it like this, as an American, former American. I'm still an American and somebody who loves history. World War II ended with the defeat of the Nazis, but many people don't know that there were Nazi military units fighting the British, the French, and the American occupiers until 1947. On the other hand, also, all the books had to be thrown out, all the educational books, and the children had to be given a normal education, not Nazi education. This has to happen. The same two things have to happen with Hamas. Hamas, it may take years before we totally purge the Gaza Strip of these terrorists, and the school books have to be changed. Israel will have a military administration, and we are going to make sure to it that there is total supervision over the schools in Gaza. The hatred business has to stop. One question is, and this really may answer your question, if the hatred comes from the mosque, if the hatred comes from their religious teachings, then maybe there is no possibility to defeat Hamas. Because no matter what you do militarily to the Hamas, the hatred is still being spewed out in the mosques. So militarily, Hamas has to be totally run out of town. It has to be totally defeated. The schools have to be retooled with the proper educational materials for the children to learn that the Jews are not monkeys and the Christians are not pigs, because that's in the Quran. The problem is then you're attacking the Quran. So the situation is not simple. And I would even say that a lot of the criticism against Israel will be nullified by terrorist attacks in the U.S., Canada, and Europe. And so we're going to be watching. This is a world war. This is a multi-front, multi-generational, multi-century war with an enemy that has the mindset of the 7th century. They have not advanced. They never had a Protestant Reformation.
If Israel destroys Hamas, do you think the problem will just move to Lebanon? And should Israel take out Hezbollah as well in Lebanon?
Okay, of course, that's an excellent question. Lebanon, they also hate the Jews for different reasons. They are backed by Iran. The Lebanese enemies are Shiites. Now, we do have in Lebanon Druze who are allies of Hezbollah in Syria against the Sunnis. Don't forget, there was a terrible civil war in Syria. So what we have is certain Christian groups are with Hezbollah. They are with the Druze against the Sunnis. And you have also a Sunni community in Lebanon. And, I'll be very honest with you. I think that the Iranians, if they had any brains at all, they would think about the future, because if Israel, let's say Israel does go in and wipes out Hezbollah completely, Hezbollah and Iran have lost a tremendous military arm when the Sunnis come to settle their debts. Don't forget that Bashar al-Assad has kicked out millions of Sunni Muslims from Syria. What you have in Syria today is an alliance, and so this is completely different from Hamas. In Syria, you also have this alliance of Christians, Druze, and Shiites, and other groups also who are against the Sunnis, because the Sunnis want to kill everybody. So Israel will have to go in to Hezbollah and wipe them out, because our Israeli citizens, 100,000 of them, who have been evacuated by the Israeli government and put in hotels to avoid the shelling, they want to go home also. At this time, praise God, because Hamas has been virtually destroyed. In Gaza, our citizens who live in the envelope, the Gaza envelope, the kibbutzim, moshavim, and cities, Sderot, Ofakim, these people now are returning to their homes, because there is not this fear that one night or one day you wake up and there are hundreds and hundreds of rockets being fired at you from Gaza. That's finished. So now when you do your lawn, you're very happy you cut it, but you've got certain weeds that have to be pulled out completely, because the root grows right back again. And that's what we have in Gaza. But Hezbollah is a lawn that we have not yet brought in the lawnmower yet. We're, attacking specific targets of rockets and weapons storage, specific leaders of Hezbollah and the Radwan terrorists who are part of Hamas in Lebanon. I don't know, in England, I think you do have a game that children play called pickup sticks. So the first stick was Gaza. And as difficult as it was, and as great a payment we had to pay to do it, that pickup stick has been picked up. The next pickup stick, from what I understand, is Hezbollah. However, we have a seven-front war here, so we may have a pickup stick with the Palestinians of Judea-Samaria. We may have a pickup stick with Syria. We may have a pickup stick with Iran. We may have a pickup stick with the Houthis. There are many, many crazy people out there who are all backed by Iran, who are all backed by Biden, and before him, Obama. So we are doing what we have to do strategically, and it is really a chess game. So we have to go knock off one piece after another.
When you're talking like this and all, Israel seems to be just surrounded by the enemy. Do you see God at work even in the midst of being surrounded by the enemy?
Well, I'll tell you, some people, when they hear me or when they see me, they laugh and they think maybe that I'm mad, because I believe in the Bible, I believe in God. I believe that the Jews and the Christians together have a joint heritage in this land. There is now, this is something you haven't referred to yet, but it's very much important for the message. There is now a rise in anti-Semitism worldwide. Now you have the classic anti-Semitism of neo-Nazis, but this anti-Semitism that I'm talking about is the Islamic plan to annihilate the Jews and the Christians who are with the Jews. So I do predict a tremendous move of population to Israel to avoid death. America will not be safe for the Jews anymore. I spoke to a neo-Nazi in Florida, a very friendly guy, and he said, we're going to wipe out the Jews in America. The Muslims say, we're going to wipe out the Jews in America. The blacks with their Black Lives Matter say, we're going to wipe out the Jews in America. Antifa, we're going to wipe out the Jews in America. And I'm thinking to myself that the Jews have to make a choice. Either they move to Israel or they die. And 80% of the Jews in America intermarry with Christians. So we're going to have a very big multitude coming to Israel, Jews and Christians. This is God's move, because the borders of Israel will go from the Nile to the Euphrates. And I could talk more about it, but it would go into really, really wild, imaginary, biblical prophecy. Yeah. And many times, the moment you say the Bible, they say this guy's a nut, because the moment he's quoting the Bible, he's a nut. I quote the Bible, and, I'm 75. I feel like I'm 18. My wife tells me to stop feeling like I'm 18. And I could die tomorrow, but I know that even if I do die tomorrow, these things are going to happen. It's God. It's not me. It's not you. It's not anyone. God has a plan. And God does not have to ask Jews and Christians our opinion. He has a plan, and the plan is going to happen. It'll be Nile to the Euphrates, and Israel's population will grow from 10 million Jews, Christians, and Muslims to 20 or 30 million in the foreseeable future.
So anti-Semitism is actually going to bring in the prophecies of God, perhaps?
It's the only tool that God has to convince Jews and Christians to move. And if you look at the immigration of Jews to Israel over the last 70 years, it's usually in countries that have problems. And the Jews, for their own survival, say, we have to get out of here and move to Israel. So there are now, like I said, 6 million Jews in America, married to about 4 million Christians, and you've got the same thing in Canada and in the UK. We've got friends in the UK, Jewish friends. They are petrified. So anyway, yeah.
How did you get to hear about the 7th of October massacre, and were you shocked at what happened?
Well, firstly, I have to tell you, this is a country which is ruled by socialists. The socialists have concepts. And one concept, for example, was in the Yom Kippur War in 1973, that the Egyptians and the Syrians would never dare to attack us. And they did. Now, the same exact concept was the concept of the socialist generals who are in charge of the Israeli military when they said that Gaza would not attack us. At least they wouldn't attack us with 3,500 invaders. We thought, maybe one settlement would have a terrorist attack. No, it was a whole Gaza program, which they had been preparing for over 16 years. And so they come to Netanyahu and say, no, the military, Gaza's never going to attack, everything is fine. And Netanyahu, he's a businessman, so he says, well, if my generals say to me nothing's going to happen, I'm going to work to promote Israel's business. The army was chopped down. All these names that you see in the media now, like, Gantz and Eisenkot and the former has-been generals, they were all saying, we're going to have peace with Hamas, and we have to make peace, and we have to create a Palestinian state. It's all nonsense, because you can't make a Palestinian state with Palestinians who want to wipe you off the face of the earth. And by the way, Christian population has been totally destroyed in the Palestinian areas. There's very few Christians today in the Palestinian areas. Even Nazareth, which is Israel proper, is now 65% Muslim and 35% Christian. So we do not have a really manageable situation today with the Hamas, with the PLO, with the Palestinian Authority. So Israel has to take it very carefully, but slowly but surely remove all those who hate Israel and want to kill everybody. They're insane, simply.
Do you have family in the army today, and are any of them fighting in Gaza?
My family is not fighting in Gaza. I have one son who's in the military, doing active military duty in Ofra, where he lives. We have one grandson in a logistical position in Tel Shomer, where the hospital is and the military control. We have a granddaughter going into the Air Force officer training. We have a grandson who's in the Air Force technical training. So 4 of them are in uniform. The others are still a little small. 2 of them are religious girls, so they don't go into the army. If you are a religious girl, you don't go into the military. You do national service. So that's as far as my family is concerned. But we have neighbors in our building who, yes, he fought 100 days in Gaza. And we embrace him and we try to smooth things over. He saw horrible things there. Killing a person is something you don't want to do because it's on your conscience as scarred tissue for the rest of your life.
Are the army fighting an ideology that doesn't play by the rules?
Absolutely. The French tried to help and negotiate sending medicines, to our hostages there, our kidnapped people, and nothing arrived. We found the boxes unopened. They didn't give them the medicines. For example, I have diabetes and I have a heart problem. I'm that age, I'm 75. If I don't take my medicines, I don't live very long. So, there are already 30 bodies of our hostages. 100 are still alive, supposedly, we don't know. So they don't play by rules. We take very good care of the Palestinian prisoners in our jails, and I think we over-pampered them, so that has been cut back a lot. But still, they have all the food, all the medication, educational possibilities that we're not dealing with rational human beings with the Hamas. They're just crazy.
What do you think should happen next to Gaza?
Well, like I said before, after Gaza is Lebanon. Unless there is a tremendous uprising in the Judea-Samaria sector. And at this point, 3,500 terrorists of Hamas in Judea and Samaria have been apprehended and they're in jail now and being interrogated. So Hamas is the same Hamas. Satan, Lucifer, the devil is always the same. And so we're doing the best we can. And what really hurts us is that Americans and British and good Westerners, good Western Christians who believe in Judeo-Christian Western civilization, democracy, don't have a clue. And one of the things I always say in the churches when I speak is that it takes a thief to know a thief. And Christians are not thieves, so you don't understand the Muslims. I understand the Muslims. I live here in the Middle East. This is an area full of thieves and murderers. And if you're just holy rollers in the churches, you cannot believe what I'm saying. I predicted 9/11 5 years before it happened. And at first, everybody attacked me. Then they said, I'm a prophet. I said, I'm not a prophet. I just listened to my wife. My wife was in military intelligence, and she had all the lead information that there was going to be an attack that would bring down with planes the World Trade Center. And then later, after the so-called Arab Spring, you have millions and millions and millions of Muslims that fled to the West. Now the West is being conquered through immigration by Muslims.
Do you think Israel is now going to be forced into a two-state solution? And does that reward terror?
There will never be a two-state solution, never ever, in a million years. If anybody tries to create a Palestinian state which is not a murderous terrorist state, they'll be killed by the murderers and terrorists. I want to say something very important. I don't hate the Muslims. I love the Muslims. My mother used to joke with me. She said, you're not Lawrence of Arabia, you are Avi of the Negev. And I had the Arab headdress and had the long dagger, and I was riding a camel, and I was 16 at the time. Very influenced by Lawrence of Arabia, the movie. We Jews have always loved the Muslims because of the horrible history with the Catholics in Spain, and because the Jews and the Muslims were allies. Most of the time, some of the times. Muslims were also pretty bad to the Jews in Cordoba in Spain. Jews were forced at the edge of the sword to convert to Islam, not just in the Christian West. So we Jews have this mantra of loving the Muslims, hating the Christians. And as you probably know from past meetings with me and interviews, I grew up hating Christians, loving Muslims, but then as I started going to churches to speak about the Middle East as an army spokesman and government representative and everything like that, all of a sudden I realized that, And my wife taught me this also. Jews and Christians are one family. We're the people of the book. And the Muslims are the Gentiles. I go to churches and the pastor says, we Gentiles. I stop him. I say, Christians are not Gentiles. Christians have the same God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Gentiles means pagans. And the Christians are not pagans. The Muslims are, because their God is the moon god, the war god, the sword god. And I've written 7 books about this, and my website, if anyone is interested, is biblicalalliance.com. And people, if they write to me, I'll answer them. They can also order my books from the website. Listen, you go to bed at night and your conscience is clear. I go to bed at night, my conscience is clear. I don't know how much I'm going to achieve. I don't know who's listening to me. I don't know if I can make any kind of a difference. But my conscience is clear. I sleep very well at night.
Do you think Jews have come closer to God since the terror attack? Do you think they've been crying out to God since this? It's shocked them?
Listen, here in Israel, many left-wing people have become right-wing. Many people have turned their back on the left-wing, what they call the pro-peace. There's no peace with these people. They're just Nazis. But for example, in America, there's really a problem that many American Jews have absolutely no idea of what's going on in the Middle East. And some of these people prefer the Muslims. Why? Because in Spain, we were allies in the good old days with the Muslims. So there are quite a bit of Jews who, unfortunately, are lost. But in the end, the terrorists will kill them too.
What is your prayer for Israel today?
Well, my prayer obviously is for Israel to be strong. Israel to be strong, Israel to be united. Because we still have a problem in this country, which we didn't even talk about, is socialism. And the founders of this country and the people who hold a monopoly over all senior positions in the country are socialists. And people like me who are nationalists or religious are not allowed to rise to the top positions in any form in Israel. Generals are all approved. Above colonel, you cannot rise if you're not a socialist. Foreign ministry, police, civil service, everything is controlled by socialists. And so I say if 65% of the population is right-wing and religious, it cannot be that population, which is socialist, which is about 20%, is going to have a dictatorship. I think it's called oligarchy over the whole population. And don't forget, the socialists have been making mistake after mistake after mistake. The Yom Kippur War was a mistake by concept. The war in Gaza now, mistake by concept, because we took them at face value, and their plan was not peace. Their plan was just to prepare and prepare and prepare. And they thought, the Gaza Arabs thought, that Iran and Lebanon and others would all join the battle against Israel, and they were all alone and they were defeated. It cost us a lot, but they were defeated. So unity, strength, and democracy, basically letting the Israeli majority rule. So we're watching that.
And what's your website again for people who'd like to know more?
biblicalalliance.com. And also, if people go to Avi Lipkin YouTubes, there are tons and tons, it's all free, tons and tons of teachings and TV programs that I've done.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
My pleasure, anytime.